Thank you. Dr. Lawson, my second question is for you. Recently, the No Child Left Behind Act has been a topic of major concern for members of the education system. Has No Child Left Behind been working? How would you change No Child Left Behind, or would you vote to remove it entirely, and why?
Great question. I can answer this both as a potential representative and as a parent. It's not working. It needs to be repealed. I speak with folks in the educational establishment here who understand what's going on. We've got the law of unintended consequences in full swing. In many counties throughout the state, we have lots of busing going on. Kids, elementary school kids, are being subjected to 40, 50-minute bus rides each way. And why is this happening? Well, what's happening is that No Child Left Behind is another unfunded mandate from Washington, is basically holding a stick over our school system's head saying, hey, you got to hit these average yearly progress goals. So what do the bureaucrats do trying to manage the education and hit the targets? They start load balancing the kids who have needs and shifting them all over the district so overall the schools can try to hit their numbers. As a physician, that's malpractice. If I have really sick patients, I need to focus resources on them, and we need great community schools that are accountable to the parents and accountable to the students that meet the needs of the students who need help. That's putting kids in an educational ICU. What we're doing instead is we're letting the federal government set up a system that encourages us to spread the sickest patients throughout the hospital and pretend like everyone's doing okay. That's malpractice.
Thank you.
No Child Left Behind is in need of a major overhaul. At least we can agree on that, except I think my opponent believes that any age education, including Head Start, including Pell Grants, is unconstitutional. You might want to enlighten us on that. This picture of our educational system as dominated by the federal government is not accurate. There is a legitimate debate to be had, believe me, about the federal role and what it should be. But only 7 cents of each education dollar comes from federal sources. 93 cents is done locally. Pupil assignments, as you well know, are done locally. That's why they fight about it all the time in Wake County and a lot of areas around here. The deploying of magnet schools, there's some federal support available for magnet schools, but it's entirely a local decision as to whether to set up those schools. And so these decisions, for better or for worse, about construction, about teacher pay, about so many things are state and local decisions. Now, what should the federal role be? My main leadership in this area has been in the area of teacher recruitment and retention, because I happen to believe that not much else we're going to do in education reform is going to work without a first-rate teaching force. And I don't have the foggiest idea, and I don't think anybody does, where our next generation of quality teachers is coming from. So fortunately, I was able to get into the Higher Education Act a provision for teacher scholarships, scholarships for prospective teachers, much like the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Program. And I'm going to really be very careful to oversee that and make sure that gets implemented. There's a teacher retention provision that's in the draft that's circulating of No Child Left Behind, and I'm hopeful that we can get that done as well. I do think trying to help close the achievement gap is an appropriate federal role through so-called Title I funding. I think early childhood is appropriate, Head Start, and I certainly think access to college through a good student loan program, which we have reformed, by the way, and Pell Grants so that kids have access to higher education. I think that's an appropriate federal role. Let's have that debate about a federal role. Let's not just raise the bugaboo of the oppressive federal government coming in and crushing education.
Dr. Lawson, 1 minute.
Representative Price makes a good point. We're only getting, the federal government holds this stick over us and tells us what goals we have to hit, but we only get 7 cents out of every dollar. What does it cost us to get those 7 cents? Now, 2007 numbers, the Federal Department of Education cost our nation $60 billion about. Okay? And with our population in North Carolina, we're 3% of the population, so our cost to fund the Department of Education on a per-person basis is about $1.8 billion. However, we in North Carolina only got about $1 billion from the federal government to spend on education. So we're paying $1.8 billion to get back to 1. Now, some might say, well, gosh, there are lots of poor schools in Alabama and Mississippi and so forth that need a lot of help too, but I'm not convinced they're doing really well either. I don't feel comfortable that our government is doing a good job redirecting these resources. It seems like a lot of this money is just getting sucked into the fiscal vortex that is Washington, D.C.
Well, if education policy needs to be reformed and improved, let's improve it. But let's not just shut down the Department of Education and give up, as my opponent suggests. We are in a struggle worldwide, a struggle, economic ascendancy, a struggle to be competitive. And you know the reports, the alarmed reports that we've had about how we're falling behind in science and math education, and our young people just aren't competitive. We need all hands on deck, believe me, to make public education all that it can be. And there is a federal role in achieving excellence, particularly in the areas of science and math and engineering. The National Defense Education Act established that many years ago, and it's still an area where special concern is warranted. There's certainly a stake in higher education and in making certain that young people can access our colleges and universities. So let's have a good, honest debate about the federal role in education, but let's skip the ideology about there being no federal role or no federal responsibility in this area.
Thank you.